Emma and Chris, a young couple eager to spend a romantic weekend away from the city's hustle and bustle, had booked a remote Airbnb house. The house, situated in a tranquil area surrounded by woods, seemed like the perfect setting for a romantic getaway. Upon their arrival, they were struck by the house's beauty and the serene ambiance of its surroundings. The warmth of the wood, the exposed beams, and the crackling fireplace added a cozy touch to the place. Everything seemed perfect. However, on the very first night, they started noticing something strange. While they were in the living room by the fireplace, they heard noises coming from above, as if someone were walking. It was impossible, as they were alone in the house and there was no attic. They asked the owner, but he confirmed that there were no hidden spaces in the house. On the second night, as they were preparing to go to bed, they heard the sound of objects seemingly moving in the kitchen. When they reached the kitchen, they found a couple of glasses overturned on the table, despite having been carefully put away. The eerie phenomena continued, lights turning on by themselves, indecipherable whispers heard during the night, and lightweight objects moving for no apparent reason. At that point, the romantic atmosphere they had imagined was rapidly fading away. Then, during one of their explorations in the house, Emma found an old photo album. In it, there were faded pictures of the house showing scenes of a bloody event that occurred years before. A murder. The clues suggested that the previous tenant had killed someone in the house and then fled. Panicked, Emma and Chris decided to confront the owner about the photos. The man, nervous, admitted that he hadn't mentioned the house's macabre history for fear that no one would want to rent it. As the days passed, the eerie occurrences intensified. The entity of the murderer seemed to haunt the house. Emma and Chris were terrified, but they didn't know how to free themselves from the situation. They needed to find a solution to rid the house's walls of the lingering malevolent entity. They decided to seek help from a paranormal specialist who, after an investigation, revealed to them how to placate the entity. They had to perform a purification ritual and call for a priest to bless the house. After the ritual, the atmosphere began to calm down. The sinister noises ceased, the objects stopped moving, and the house finally seemed free from the malevolent entity. Emma and Chris decided to stay for the remainder of their stay and, with relief, were finally able to enjoy their romantic getaway without any more interference. While leaving the house at the end of their stay, they wondered if the entity of the murderer had truly disappeared or had just temporarily left the house. In a tranquil coastal town, a group of friends had rented an Airbnb for a weekend of relaxation and fun. The house, situated in a remote area, seemed the perfect place to get away from the hustle and bustle of daily life and enjoy the sun and the sea. Upon arrival, they were struck by the beauty of the house. Its classic architecture and the expansive garden with a sea view were truly enchanting. They settled in, planning a weekend of sun, beach, and barbecues. However, already on the first night, they started hearing strange voices coming from the attic. It was almost as if someone was whispering incomprehensible words. Initially, they thought it was just their imagination or typical sounds of an old house. But things took a more unsettling turn the following night. While they were having dinner in the living room, they noticed mysterious shadows moving through the hallways upstairs. They were frightened and called the police, convinced that intruders were present. The police arrived quickly but found no traces of intrusion or suspicious individuals inside the house. The friends were confused and scared, but they had no choice but to continue their stay, hoping it was just an isolated incident. However, the apparitions and the nighttime voices persisted. They began to hear sinister whispers, seemingly emanating from the attic. Despite their attempts to ignore them, fear enveloped them. They decided to explore the attic to understand where the sounds were coming from. They cautiously climbed the stairs, following the unsettling voices. The attic was dark, and the air was thick with tension. As they explored, they found a sealed room. With a bit of effort, they managed to open it. What they found inside deeply disturbed them. The room was filled with chilling artifacts, ritualistic tools, frightening masks, and items associated with a dark cult. But the most disturbing discovery was a diary detailing the story of an old sacrificial cult that operated in the area many years ago. The cult venerated a dark deity and carried out human sacrifices to satiate its thirst for blood. Horror seized the friends as they read the diary. They realized that the house they were in had been used by the cult for its macabre rituals. The malignant entity of the cult seemed to still reside in the house, ready to torment anyone who dared approach. In the grip of terror, the friends decided to immediately leave the house and seek refuge elsewhere. The dark secret associated with the old sacrificial cult had terrified them to the point where they no longer wanted to stay in that place. As they left the house, the sea breeze blew cold against their fear-sweaten faces. Stars sparkled in a clear night sky, but nothing could dissolve the dark shadow of horror that had enveloped them. The decision to leave the house was quick, but they soon realized they had no idea where they could spend the rest of the weekend. They drove in search of a hotel or any other place to spend the night, but it seemed that all accommodations were full. Word about their unsettling experience in the Airbnb had quickly spread in the small coastal town, and no one else seemed willing to host them. Finally, after many hours of searching and a growing sense of despair, they found a small, run-down but welcoming motel. The owner, an elderly man with clear eyes and a kind smile, seemed not to have heard of the issues with the house they had just left. He agreed to accommodate them for the rest of the weekend, and the friends fell asleep, exhausted but finally safe. As they woke up the following day, they realized they would never forget the horror of the coastal house. Curiosity and the need to find out more led them to conduct research. Visiting the local library, they found a series of old newspaper articles that told stories of mysterious disappearances and murders linked to a sacrificial cult in the past. They discovered that the cult had operated in the area many years ago, and the house they had stayed in had been used as a location for their macabre rituals. The police had managed to stop the cult, but the darkness of the past still seemed to reside within the walls of the house. The sun sparkled on the horizon as Jaleesa Jackson and Chiedozie Uwandu landed on the opposite coast, weary from their medical roles in Boston. A vacation was the prescribed antidote to the stress that had built a wall between them and the joy of living. The choice of a quiet guest house through Airbnb seemed to promise the long-awaited retreat. The picturesque coastal location enveloped them with its charm, a refuge away from the chaos of the hospital. However, fate had other plans. That week, their tranquility transformed into a nightmare. In the heart of the night, a deafening crash catapulted them from the serenity of sleep, abruptly tearing them from the enchantment of tranquility. Jaleesa and Chiedozie leaped from bed in a moment of confusion, eyes still blurred by sleep, while the unbearable sound echoed through the walls of the guest house. In total darkness, devoid of any visual cues, they were left with the oppressive sense of uncertainty, a fear creeping into their thoughts like a subtle poison. Only the menacing sound from downstairs challenged the darkness, fueling the anxiety that was quickly taking hold of them. They glimpsed a shadow stirring in the darkness, a silent yet imposing presence that funneled adrenaline through their veins. Terror spread through them like an uncontrollable fire, a mixture of fear and disbelief in the face of the unexpected invasion of their intimacy. The shadow, a sinister intrusion, had breached the threshold through the guest house window, overturning the normalcy of their vacation into a frightening chaos. Screams reverberated in the air, saturated with panic and disorientation, as they desperately tried to comprehend the threat lurking in the unsettling shadow. Jaleesa's heart pounded in her chest, the deafening sound of each beat a testament to the tension that had invaded their temporary sanctuary. In that moment, the reality of danger manifested in all its cruelty, and the couple found themselves grappling with unexpected fear and the incredible vulnerability of their situation. Without hesitation, they called the police. Adrenaline pulsed through their veins as they waited, powerless, for someone to rescue them from this intrusion into their oasis of peace. The apparent calm of their vacation had given way to an unexpected terror. The flashing lights of the police cars shattered the darkness, bringing a bit of relief. The intruder was confronted and arrested. The guest house, once a safe haven, now bore the tangible signs of violation. fragments of glass and unresolved fears. The next day, under the serene sky of the coast, they reflected on the uncertainties of life. They had embarked on the journey to escape stress, not to find themselves in the midst of a thriller movie scene. But the strength of the couple emerged from the chaotic situation. They welcomed the support of local authorities and the Airbnb host, who apologized deeply. They decided not to let a single event compromise their break. Resilience grew, and the bond between Jalisa and Chidozi strengthened. The story of that night could have destroyed them, but instead, it united them in a special way. Facing the terror together brought out the strength of their relationship. They returned to Boston with a story to tell, a story that went beyond the initial horror but celebrated the strength of resilience and love in the face of adversity. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content.